Our last interview of the day is with Frank Klein, the bookseller from Akron, Ohio. And Frank, give us a little bit about your personal background, a little biographical sketch, where you were born, where you were brought up, family, schools, etc.
Okay, well, I was born in New Philadelphia, Ohio. We moved to the Akron area. We moved to a suburb of Akron, more of a farming community called Stowe. It was in Stowe that my father somehow bought a trunkload of, he bought a large trunk and it was full of books. He didn't even know what he was buying, but that started him and he began acquiring books. We had a store in our home, bookstore in our home in 1936. I can remember sweeping it out. Later, we moved it to another place, and we moved it up to Kent. My father had a man working for him while he was, I think Dad was on WPA then. But this fellow was about the most knowledgeable man I've ever met. He was a Scotchman, well educated, and he was well known in newspaper circles, but he had one problem. He was a drunk, and I'd never seen. He was a periodic drunk. I'd never seen. My parents didn't drink. I'd never seen anything like this, but he went on a binge, and we lost the store entirely with all the books in it. He later became a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he edited and wrote most of the Big Red Book that they have today. His name was Jim Scott. But that was, so he was really a knowledgeable bookman. Later he was closely associated with Mansfield book dealer. Who am I trying? Yeah, Ernie Wesson. Ernie Wesson. He was close to one of Wesson's scouts in the Akron area. Then I grew up in the town of Cuyahoga Falls, which is a good bit larger than Stowe was at the time. 1944, I was drafted into the Army and spent 2 years in the Army. I served in Europe with the 103rd Infantry Division, and later came out. And when I came out, Dad had filled a garage full of books, and he was operating a little store on the road tour between Stowe and Hudson, and he called it the Country Bookstore. And when I started back to college, and I was going to Kent State, which is in the local area there, and I got Dad to move the books. We needed room in the garage, so we decided we'd open a bookstore in a basement in Cuyahoga Falls. Hence the name we started there with the bookseller, spelled with a C. And that was in 1948 when we started that. I was continuing my education at Kent State, and when I got out, I'd fallen in love, and I could see absolutely no way that a bookstore that we had in this basement would ever possibly support my wife and me and my parents. So I was offered a regular Army commission, and I went back in the Army in 1950, and Dad continued with the store. We moved the store ultimately into Akron, and then all the time I was sort of doing the taxes and things with the store. I was keeping up with it, but I served 20 years with the Army. Dad died in 1970, and I retired. I'd been to both Korea and Vietnam. Korea as an infantryman, and Vietnam. I got into Army aviation and was flying then. My last job in the Army was in in Washington, and so I retired and came back and took over the store. Dad had been gone about 4 or 5 months. I took over this old store, and the interesting to me is the thing that I never have had known the what we call really rare book dealing as it's done by many of the members of the ABA/AA. I was a used book dealer straight, and that's what I began with in Akron, and gradually built the business to where it is today, which still isn't. We're still a used bookstore with some interesting things. My daughter is with me now, Andrea. She is a bookbinder, but she really enjoys the book business. Did that answer? Long?
Did you recently move, or?
Oh, we had a very old store in Akron, and it was in a building that caught fire, and the building, it was in a rather wooden area, a great deal of co-joining stores, and they were afraid that when the fire started in this other part of this building we were in, that the fire might spread. So they had 2 water cannons out there dumping thousands of gallons of water in it. We didn't have any books burned, but we got most of the water. Yeah. I can remember looking down the basement, and the basement was full of Life magazines and other things like that, and the water was up to your waist in there. So we lost all the basement and a goodly portion of the books up there, up in the first floor. So we located another place to move, and we started again. Still not in the rare book business. I don't think the city of Akron really could support a rare book business like you see. Cleveland, yes, they did. They had a couple of good stores there, but Akron, in any event, we moved down close to the Akron General Hospital in Akron. And then later, the landlord felt that the Akron General was expanding, and he might be able to sell the building to Akron General, so he wouldn't give us a lease on the building. And I looked around, and I found what to me has been the most wonderful bookstore in the world. We're in the best part of town. We have a great deal of parking. We have a basement with a conveyor belt up and down. Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
But we can't get customers to come in. It's hell. Really. It's been a big disappointment, but well, we'll see. But it's not a.
How long have you been in the new location?
Since we moved in 2000. So we've been.
You've been there a while.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's probably that I'm more of a military person with the ability to fly than I am with a businessman. But
Andrea helps out, doesn't she?
No, she's no worse. She's worse than I am.
Oh, really? I didn't think that was possible. But
I shouldn't say that. If you guys cut some of this out, edit it.
What part does the internet play in your business?
Increasingly, a larger and larger part. I think that people are leaning too much on it, though. I think that as the business guys take over the book things, that this thing of everybody pricing off the internet, you end up with a bunch of people that have no knowledge of why the book is priced like that. You go to I don't know if you've been to any book sales lately, but today it's the age of the guy coming along with his zapper that zaps the ISBN number, and the machine tells them whether or not to buy it, and they don't know what the hell they're doing.
No passion?
No. Well, the almighty almighty dollar. But I don't see that passion in. Most of them I've never seen in the store, so that means that they're not really book hounds at all.
What percentage of your business do you do on the internet?
We'd have to gauge that by our gross sales, and I'm running a survey right now, but I think it runs, the internet profit or sales run about 30% of the business.
And the catalogs bring in?
The catalogs, we have a lot more trouble getting a catalog out because my daughter does most of the catalogs, and she wants to put fresh stuff out. But if you get something in and you put it on the internet, why you wonder. It's just, I think we could do a lot more with catalog. We just have a catalog that's a week old now, and it's doing quite well.
I think I just bought something from it.
Yeah, I think. But we haven't been able to get the catalogs out with the regularity of it.
How many do you issue a year?
We try to do 5, but this year so far we've only done 2.
You haven't got much of a year left to do 3 more.
That's right. It's become very difficult.
When you were a young man in the trade, who were some of the booksellers who were sort of mentors, or who you looked up to as being an example of what you would like to have been?
Well, I mentioned Jim Scott, and there was a dealer, Lionel Swicker in Akron. I don't think I knew of any, ABAA was just beginning in those years, but and I didn't know Wesson. I met a couple of, when I retired and came back, Lionel Swicker, he had a store called the Old Bookstore, and it was a big book. Swick did a great business in religious books. He would go to England and buy up cheap religious books there and bring them back, and he did quite well with them. But here again, he's not what you would call a polished bookman today. He was a used book dealer, and that's what I've known most. And that's about it. I don't think a rare book. Today you could probably do rare books with the internet, but
I would think so. Did you have any problems transitioning your business to computers?
No. I back in '84, I think, we bought a little Kitech. I think it had 10, not even megabytes, I don't think. I don't know. It was one of the first ones with a hard disk in it. And we started right away turning out our catalogs on it and using it. We've been, although now I've ended up as the guru for our store, and I don't know very much at all about computers, but
I don't really think you do.
We keep looking for a 17-year or 18-year-old to bring in and who can keep us. But our force of computers is 5, and I think they go. Well, we're still using Bookies. I don't know if you know that, but it's an old.
And we started with Bookies, but when Bookies became unsupportable, we went to Bookhound.
Yeah, we should have.
You can still do it.
Yeah, we were thinking of it.
Because Bookies is just, it's not supportable. So if anything goes wrong, you're screwed.
Yeah, it was such a good program.
Well, it's Fox-based, so it had all the good things for us. But as time goes on, you need to improve not only, the computers, but your programs as well. So you didn't have really much of a difficulty. You sort of just eased yourself into the computer aspect of the thing.
We got with, I think, the fellow out on the West Coast. It used to be down in Columbus. I drove in from Ohio this in the time I hit the Massachusetts boundary, it wiped out every name I can remember. I think it's partially, it has something to do with my advanced years or something, but
You might have pressed the wrong button. It's
yeah, but so I can't think of Dick. Oh, he founded.
Acres of Books?
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
Dick Weatherford.
Well, Dick Weatherford, yeah, he was a professor at Ohio State.
Yeah, and he.
And he developed the interlock system.
Yeah, and I attended a couple of his talks and all. And he made a lot of sense. He still does, really.
Yeah.
But,
he had a wonderful idea that nobody believed in until it was too late.
Yeah.
A lot of people got left behind because they didn't think in terms of the computer as your friend. They thought of it as your enemy.
Yeah. No, it's.
What are some of the big challenges we face in the future? I mean, hopefully guys like you and I are going to be around for a little more. What do you see as some of the big challenges?
I think the biggest one is the disappearance of the book. I wonder what incentive is a writer going to have today if everything is, let's just say the average publisher goes under, or and I don't see them there being any way that a library, for instance, can support having the huge amount of space and staff that they have in running a library when things are tough, and the library board is going to look at somebody from the outside. One of these business people is going to come in and show them how they can have access to all of the books they need. Just pull it up on the screen, and how are you going to justify having thousands and thousands and a million books in storage? This would be hard business decisions, and they're going to have to say, well, do we support the storage of these books, or do we and fire a lot of our staff, or do we change? And I think it's going to be really, really critical that way. You can see it today. The number of people. My little grandson, great grandson, is 4 years old. He has a house, or really a dining room full of toys, but over in the corner is a computer that he's learning to use now. Yeah. And his mother reads to him, and he likes books, but I don't know. I think it'll be just an economic thing that drives it. I wondered if I were offered, say, a really nice library that I would spend $20,000 or $30,000 for, would I be making a good investment for the future? I don't know. Maybe we book dealers are going to end up as antique dealers. I don't know. It's going to be
it's
interesting.
Always fun to speculate about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then be around to see it.
Yeah.
Again, another issue.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to get into the book trade today, what advice might you give them?
Based on what I just said, I'd tell them to be very careful of it. I don't know that I just don't know.
I don't think any of us
No,
really know.
I'd be hesitant to really. But I had a young man working for us that he started as a sophomore in high school, and when he graduated from high school, he didn't want to become. He loved books, but he's a freshman or whatever they call them at Annapolis now.
I think it is.
But I didn't ever propose to him, that he ought to do that. But they'd have to sort of wait and see. I was hoping this young guy would stick around because he was pretty computer knowledgeable. But
Do Do you think Andrea, your daughter, will carry on the business?
I think that's about all she knows, so I'm sure she will. But it'll be a tough. You get into all kinds of physical problems as you get older, you know, and she's getting arthritis pretty badly.
Like the rest
So
of us?
I've tried to get her into bookbinding and as a business rather than. She's one of the best restoration artists I've seen. But, she loves the book business too much.
Well, let me ask you one final question. We live in a world of books, you and I, and we've seen some great booksellers in our time. And I'm wondering, if you look around, do you see any potential rising stars or potential great booksellers in this group of young people?
Ed Hoffman, perhaps. I don't know if he's young enough or not, but
Well, he's
he's
probably in his 40s.
a good man. So there's some of the other younger ABAA people that we have, but it's interesting. The thing is that when I retired in '70 and used to do a few shows on the East Coast here, and I met all these young stalwarts. Today, one of them has been president of ABAA, another one's named Peter Stern, and they were all hard chargers.
Yeah.
And now they're getting old.
Well, you know, time marches on. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Frank, thanks very much for your time.
Okay, Mike.